Gemporium is a cute new shop sim and mining game where you play as a bespectacled little mole who takes over his grandma's gem shop while she's away on vacation. I played the demo during the most recent Steam Next Fest and fell in love with its adorable graphics and chill gameplay. Merge Conflict Studio, the developers of Gemporium, were nice enough to give me a key for early review ahead of the game's release on August 7th, and I greatly appreciate it. I have not in any way been instructed on what to say or how to talk about the game, nor have I been required to submit this video for approval before posting. I do want to give a shout out to the devs though for making it clear that no generative AI was used in the making of Gemporium, which I am always so happy to know. Hire real artists, people. Anyways, I've played through the first 21 days of Gemporium so far, so let's talk about it. Starting up a new save file, the game doesn't have quite as robust an option menu as I would personally prefer, but as this is not a particularly graphics or sound heavy game, the limited options there aren't really that big of a deal. The game does have some accessibility options, but not too many. You can pick between 3 different cursor sizes, make it easier to chisel and polish gems, and reduce the intensity of the camera shake and visual effects. I personally had to lower the camera shake to about 50% as the full intensity made me a little dizzy. Unfortunately, Gemporium does not currently have controller support, which was rough for someone like myself who sucks at using WASD to move. And as the game does have a time management element to it, losing precious seconds by struggling with character control can definitely be frustrating. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that controller support will be introduced eventually, as just being able to move more smoothly and consistently will make the game that much more relaxing. Speaking of time management and relaxing gameplay, there is a cozy mode, which removes the day timer and lets you play at your own pace, but the menu states that the game is not balanced properly for this mode and thus is not recommended for first-time players. As such, I started my initial playthrough in normal mode. Before entering into the tutorial section of the game, you call up your grandmother, your grandmole, to remind her of your upcoming visit over the summer. Also, you're a mole named Mole, as in Joel, but like, as a mole. Anyways, your grandmole has already completely forgotten about your plans to visit her, and she's already left on vacation. She then essentially gaslights you into running her gem shop for her while she's away, because hey, you're gonna be there anyway, right? She also calls you Pebble as a nickname. Aww. When you arrive at the Gemporium, you're greeted by Pietro, your grandmole's sentient pet rock. He lets you into the store, and the tutorial begins. The gameplay loop is pretty straightforward, especially at the beginning. At the start of the day, you enter the mines, which are conveniently attached directly to the store, in order to dig up gems. You have to be careful where you dig, as you run the risk of cracking the gems if you hit the wrong spot, something I have done an embarrassing amount of times already. You then bring the gems back into the store to refine them, which raises their sale value substantially. First, you chisel away the dirt through a relatively simple minigame where you click inside a moving on-screen bar, similar to the many fishing minigames I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with at this point. Then you polish the gems to a shine by rubbing them with a cloth. When the business day begins, your shop opens automatically, and you walk over to the door of the shop to sell your wares. The customer's dialog box tells you which gem they want the most and which gem they want the least, and selling them what they want the most doubles the gem's value. Once you're out of gems to sell, the shop closes, at which point you can check out the upgrade catalog. Most of the upgrades relate to the mines themselves, like you can buy more space in your gem bag, better tools that lower your chance of cracking gems, a way to see what gems are buried where, etc. There are better tools for refining and selling your gems too. The upgrades start out cheap, but they increase in price dramatically, so by the end of my first 3 weeks in game, I wasn't anywhere close to being fully upgraded. After you check out the upgrades, you end the day by heading off to bed, where you see an overview of all the gems you've found, refined, cracked, and sold, a list of any found artifacts, aka collectibles, and a summary of customer interaction. Moving into the first real day after the tutorial, Mole the Mole skitters adorably across a little calendar where you might notice the words at the bottom of the screen. Next payment, $1,500. This was the first moment in the game that I found a little bit odd. I knew from playing the demo that the shop had rent, or what I remembered as rent, that needed to be paid, so I knew that was what the next payment text was referring to. However, while that concept was explained in the demo, there is zero mention of it at this stage of the game, so I would imagine if you haven't played the demo that might be confusing. I also knew that I had a full week to make that money, and since I remembered it as being a rent payment, I assumed I'd need to have $1,500 on hand by the end of every week. And let me tell you, I assumed incorrectly. The early gameplay loop played out mostly the same as in the tutorial. Mine, refine, sell, upgrade, sleep, repeat. I did have a few nights interrupted by phone calls though, usually from my grandmole, calling to check on me and then lovingly ignore all of my concerns. Also, Pietro the pet rock called me sometimes. By the end of the first week, I had purchased a level 1 drill tool for more delicate work in the mines, the home television, which shows what the popular gem is each day, the level 1 gem polish upgrade, which increases your polishing speed, and a level 1 skip button, which allowed me to skip a few customers in line every day in order to better match my inventory to my customers' wants. I also learned about shop reputation, a metric that both brings in more customers and unlocks more upgrades in the catalog. Selling customers the gems they want raises your reputation, while selling them gems that they don't want lowers it. I managed to increase my shop reputation to level 1 in the first week, so that was nice. Also at the end of the first week, the loan shark appeared to take his payment. Oh yeah, right, the payment was for a shitty loan, not rents. Okay, well, this won't be too bad. I have the money right here, Mr. Loan Shark, sir. Goodbye. Wait, what do you mean the next payment is due in 4 days? And what do you mean the next payment is $4,500? Yeah, this was the next big thing to throw me for a loop. The loan payment had tripled, while the time needed to pay it had been cut by nearly half. Again, there was no explanation of this, it just happened. And while I had purchased a few quality of life upgrades by that point, I was nowhere near having upgraded enough to make that much money in 4 days. The only reason I'd had $1,500 on me after a week was because I had purposely held off on buying too many upgrades to make sure I had the money for that first payment. And with the price of upgrades increasing exponentially, there was pretty clearly no way I could make both enough money to buy the upgrades and pay for the loan payment. I didn't even know if I could do one of those two things in time. Over the next 4 days, I got my shop reputation up to level 2, got gaslit by Grand Mole again, this time about the loan shark. What? And bought absolutely 0 upgrades in 3 out of 4 days because I needed all of my freaking money for the loan shark. After successfully paying off the shark for a second time, I took a look at the upgrades catalog and allowed myself to purchase the repayment plan, which lets me pay the loan shark in advance rather than hold on to all of my cash until his next visit. This upgrade also had the added bonus of giving you an early payment discount off the remaining balance of the debt, which helped take at least a little bit of the pressure off. Oh my god, the next payment is due in 3 days. Over those next 3 days, all I did was pay off a little bit of my next payment in advance and grind the best I could for money. No upgrades or extra reputation to be found. As it was, I just barely had enough to pay off the remaining $3,000 of my next pay. What do you mean the next payment is $11,250? I have to admit, this is when I started to get very frustrated with the game. It felt very unbalanced by this point. The payments were going up drastically with no explanation, and the time between loan shark visits was all over the place. It felt like the only way to get ahead was to purchase upgrades to make the shop more efficient, but then it also felt like I couldn't do that when all of my money needed to go towards the next loan payment. I played the next 4 days feeling rather demoralized, honestly. Paid off little bits of the loan when I could, and I managed to get my shop level up to 3, but when the loan shark came around this time, I only had just over 2,300 of the 5,250 that I still owed. Oh, I just owe interest if I can't pay? That's it? Oh, okay then. So after that, I pretty much stopped stressing. Knowing that not paying the debt on time would just add interest to the total owing rather than penalize the shop in some way made me much less concerned with conserving money, and I spent the last few days of that 3rd week just relaxing and enjoying the ride. Believe it or not, I really did enjoy my first 3 weeks in Gemporium overall. The primary gameplay loop is mostly chill, the art is adorable, and the story and dialogue are pretty damn funny. My 2 biggest criticisms are the lack of explanation for certain things and the imbalance in the economy. Obviously, I was frustrated with the lack of communication over the loan, but there were some smaller concerns too. If I remember correctly, in the demo it was pointed out that if you hammered or drilled too close to the mine supports, you could collapse the mine and you'd lose all your gems. However, this was never mentioned in the full game, which could be frustrating or confusing for people who didn't play the demo. A small frustration that actually did carry over from the demo for me was that I didn't know if I had to have an absolutely empty inventory before I could close the shop for the day, as customers keep coming to the counter even if you only have unrefined gems left, and you are able to sell those unrefined gems to them, albeit for a much lower price. There's no obvious close shop button on the shop screen, just the arrow labeled tab. I only found out that the tab arrow is how you close the shop when I only had unrefined artifacts in my inventory and the game wouldn't let me sell them, so I had no choice but to attempt to leave the screen. And then of course I was just able to leave and I was just like, oh, so that's how you close it, huh? By far, my biggest issues are related to the economy. The fact that it wasn't clear that missing a loan payment would harmlessly add to the debt had me so hyper-focused on making money that I couldn't enjoy myself much. And I am someone who likes grinding for money and resources in games. But the lack of reasoning for why payments and payment windows kept changing was incredibly frustrating. Throw in the fact that upgrades increased drastically in price between levels, plus the time you have to mine and refine gems each day is extremely limited, and it felt like I was never going to be able to get ahead. The economy definitely needs a bit more balancing, because it makes 0 sense to expect a player to make $12,000 in 3 days for a loan payment, and somehow also afford upgrades that can very quickly surpass $5,000 each. All that said, would I recommend Gemporium? Yes! Like I said, the core gameplay loop is fun, and now that I know that the loan payment is just supposed to be one more challenge rather than a game-defining feature, maybe I was overthinking that a bit, I'm not sure. I'm looking forward to playing more. I do think I might try the cozy mode next though. I really like the idea of being able to putter through the mines and experiment with upgrades, making the game into more of a chill money grinder. I'm curious to check out the Twitch integration too, so feel free to swing by my Twitch channel this Friday, August the 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and check it out with me. And honestly, the Twitch stream is another excuse for me to make a new save file, just so that you can see all of the crazy phone calls with Grandma. Thank you again to Merge Conflict Studio for gifting me the early review key for Gemporium. I really appreciate it, and I hope it came through that I really do enjoy this game, and my criticism is meant to be constructive. The game is great, it just needs a little bit of tweaking in my personal opinion. Again, Gemporium releases August 7th, and I will have the Steam page linked below in the description. I highly recommend checking out the demo if it's still available as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you for some cozy mode Gemporium over on Twitch on Friday.